Hey YouTubers! Well, I got an awesome review for you guys today. So I got a couple of power inverters here from a company called OUBOTEK. I guess that's how you say it. The spelling on it is OUBOTEK. And so this one here is the 3000 watt pure sine wave power inverter. This thing's just a little over $200. It's like $212 right now on Amazon. So I'll be doing the testing on this maybe next week or the week after. And then this power inverter that I'm going to be reviewing today is like $46 on Amazon right now. So this here is the OUBOTEK 500 watt pure sine wave power inverter, and not a lot of people review the 500 watt inverters or 1000 watt inverters, because it's just too small. But some of you out there might like these power inverters that are smaller in size because they're smaller in size. You can put them in a lot of tighter places, and you can still run quite a few things on it. So we're going to go ahead and do the review on this. If you're interested in seeing the review on this 3000, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I sure appreciate it. So this company here makes 3 different power inverters that they've got on Amazon right now. There's a 500, which I have here, and there is a 2000 and a 3000 like I just showed you, and they are all 12 volt. Anyways, just wanted to go ahead and unbox it. And I gotta say right off the bat, I really like the white on the case. Now most inverters are black and gray and all these other different colors. Some of them are blue, but I really like that white, just in case you was to take this thing out camping or something on a hot day. That sun's not going to just radiate it in that black paint. I do have to say the fit and finish on the paint job is really nice. I think it's maybe a powder coat or something, not real sure. So I just wanted to show you that the casing here on the inverter, it's aluminum here, the white part is, and then on the back this is aluminum as well, and then right here on the end caps, these are steel, and you can see the flashlight that's magnetic sticks to the ends. So yeah, it's made out of steel, and then the casing is aluminum. Doesn't seem flimsy. It doesn't make any rattles or any of that. Gotta say, it seems like a pretty strong inverter, just from a case standpoint, and it looks good. Now, as far as here on this end, where you can see that you've got your toolless terminals right there. So you've got basically just a piece of plastic with, it looks like a brass insert on the inside, and then it comes with a flat washer. Most of the time they give you a lock washer. In fact, I probably wouldn't run this inverter unless you put just like a little lock washer on there, just because if you tighten these cables down and you move the cable at all, it's gonna become loose very easily. So I would definitely just put a lock washer on there, and that way you don't have to worry about it. Now, I went ahead and measured the terminal post, and it is an M6, where on your batteries, most of your batteries are an M8. These are the next size down, it's an M6. Then right beside it, you've got a little bitty cooling fan, and it's just held in place with these 2 little screws. You've got your mounting tab right here on the side. You've got a little spot for to mount it with a screw or a bolt, whatever. It's going to be hard, and if you go to mount this, you're going to have to put the screw in the wall, slide this in place in order to clear these terminals. Now, one thing that I'm not too crazy about is these are really, really close together. But anyways, I'd like to see them space these out a little bit further, if at all possible, just in the future. But if you mount it and make sure these are nice and tight, you shouldn't have any problems. You could always probably run some electrical tape around it just to protect it, make sure there's no short. So on this end, you got your 2 AC outlets, and then you've got a grounding terminal right here on the bottom there, and then you've got a green LED and a red LED, and then you've got your classic toggle switch, and then you've got a mounting tab here on the bottom. And like I said before, on the other side, if you're mounting this thing, it's going to be not as bad as this, because these terminals are going to be right in your way if you was to try to screw a screw into a board and mount it. So this side, you're going to have a little bit more room to mount it. So I don't think anything's going to be that bad in your way. The toggle switch, you might have to put it in like a middle to get a screw right in and be able to get your bit or your screwdriver down in there to mount it. So keep that in mind. And anyways, I'm going to go ahead and show you what all it come with. It come with a negative cable, your positive cable, and then a little grounding wire here. Then it comes with two 40 amp blade style fuses. So anyways, we're going to put all this to the side. So I'm going to do some quick measuring for you, and I'm going to measure the length. Now when I measure my inverters, I usually measure from the end of the terminals there, and I unscrew them just a little bit because you know there's going to be a little bit of a lug stuck up in there, so I try to account for that. So I turn them out about a turn and a half, and then I'm going to measure to the very end right there of the mounting location there. So I'm going to go ahead and measure it out, 9 7/8 long. And then as far as the width, it measures 4 1/4 wide. Your thickness is going to be right at, let's see, 2.5 inches thick. All right, so providing power for the review today is this LiPulse. This is a 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. This is the one with the 200 amp BMS. So this is their heavy duty model. And so I'm going to be doing a review on this here coming up shortly. I've got it all charged up and ready to go. But one thing, when I went to hook everything up, with the provided cables, while it will connect right here on this terminal because it is an M6, you know, it'll connect right up there, no problem. But then when you try to connect it to the battery, what I was saying is this is an M8. You know, the terminal that goes on most of your batteries are M8s, and so this lug, this bolt here will not fit into the terminal on the end of that, or that lug on that wire there. So you know, OUBOTEK or whatever, if you're watching, make sure if you're going to provide any kind of wiring with these power inverters, it's the same with every other Chinese power inverter. If you're going to provide the wires, make sure the diameter is bigger so it doesn't overheat, and then make sure that the lugs on the end of here are big enough diameter to fit on a battery. So make sure it's at least an M8 so you can connect it up. So I'm not even going to try to test these wires. To me, they are junk because they don't fit most batteries. So I'm just going to take them off. Now I'm basically just going to throw these in a scrap pile and use them on another project. So they're basically useless to me. I have some other wires here, and this is the one like OUBOTEK should include with their inverters. This is from another power inverter. I think it was 1,000 or 1,500 watt power inverter, but they're perfect for a 500 watt. And so you can see right here that this is a larger terminal on this end to connect to the battery, and then it is a smaller terminal on this end to be able to connect to the lug. So take note, guys, when you send in these wires, make sure you put the right terminals on the end. This will fit right up on this inverter, and then you still got room for your flat washer and your lock washer. So make sure that if you use this inverter to purchase an extra lock washer, because it did not come with that. And what I mean by using a lock washer with this is these terminals can come loose very easily. Even if you tighten it up really good, which you don't want to go crazy on it, but just a little bit of movement, you can see that just comes loose. And with heat cycling this, getting it hot and cold, it could loosen up pretty easily. And if you was to have two of those terminals touch right there, you're gonna have a nice little spark right there. And I've went ahead and connected the positive cable, and then I'm about to connect the negative cable. But before you connect it, just take your resistor and you touch it to the cable here, and then you touch it to the battery. And what this does, it just prevents there from being a spark. I know it scares a lot of people because it sparks a little bit. Plus, it keeps the capacitors from charging too fast and damaging them, because there's a lot of power in these batteries and it rushes in there to charge them too fast, and this way it just limits that power. So all these are just little 30 ohm 30 ohm resistors, and I've got a link for these down in the description. So when you do touch it together like that, you don't see any kind of spark And then I'm gonna go ahead and put my bolt in there. And one thing about this inverter is it's so small, with it being just a 500 watt, it doesn't have any kind of display. It don't tell your voltage or any of that. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you're using a small inverter like this, you're gonna have to have some sort of way to monitor, you know, your voltage and all that. So before I go ahead and turn the inverter on, I'm going to go ahead and check the USB and see if it's live and see if it has power. And so I've got these little USB lights, these little light bulbs. They're from VT Power. I always recommend them in all my videos because these things are amazing. They only use 5 watts of power each. And, you know, it puts out quite a bit of light. And so I've got a splitter hooked up to them, and you can get like a 4-pack of these lights and 2 splitters for like $20-something. And I'm just going to go ahead and see if, yep, you can see that it lights it up and the inverter's not turned on. So, you know, that's pretty neat. So with the USB plugged in right there to just DC power, you're not using the power inverter. It's not using extra wattage for the inverter being on. This is just coming like it's directly hooked up to the battery. So, you know, you're not getting any kind of draw at all from the actual inverter. It's these are only using 5 watts of power each. These things are really nice just to have if there's a power outage, if you take them camping or something like that. You know, I recommend them to if you're using power stations or if you're using inverters like this. They work really well. All right, so I went ahead and turned the inverter on, and you can see the green lights on. And then I went ahead and plugged in this little jumper here to just a little outlet box. And then I've got a watt meter plugged in here on top. And the watt meter actually tells you some pretty useful information. It says that it's putting out 120.4 volts at 60 hertz. And then I went ahead and I've got it hooked up on this side with a clamp. And then I'm gonna probe it right here and see if it's yep, you can see right there it's pure sine wave and it's distortion free. It looks nice and clean, so gotta say pretty happy with that. Looks really good. And we're gonna do a load test on it and see if it'll handle the 500 watts as claimed. Now it is a 500 watt inverter and it's rated at 1,000 watts peak wattage, but 500 watts continuous. So we're going to test it out and see what it does. So now we're going to go ahead and hook it up to this little bitty heater. This is just a little cheap, I believe it's a Mainstay brand heater from Walmart. These things are like 10 bucks. And I believe it uses around 400 watts somewhere in there. But we've got it hooked up to the watt meter here, and I still have the oscilloscope hooked up. I'm going to see what the sine wave looks like with a load on it and see if it distorts any. And so anyways, we're going to go ahead and turn it on and see just how many watts this thing pulls. So I just turned the heater on, and you can see 596.44. It shut down. That was too much of a surge wattage for it. I didn't know if it would run it or not, but the thing is, it's letting you know that it's shut down, and it's flashing right there with a red light, just letting you know that it's too much for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. But that thing surged all the way up to it looked like 600 and something watts. So if you're trying to run a little heater with this 500 watt inverter, it's not going to run it. That surge is just too great. So we're going to have to find something else that's a little bit lower in wattage. But before I find something else to put this thing to use, I'm going to go ahead and do that little test again, just so you guys can see it and pay more attention to it. I've got it hooked up to the watt meter still into the oscilloscope, and then I've got the heater still hooked up. I'm going to flip the switch on it, and we're going to see how this thing reacts. But before I turn this thing on for the second time, I went ahead and went through the watt meter here, and it has a function on here that shows you the highest amount of power that this thing surged up to, and it shows right here, high 702.1 watts. So I'm surprised. I didn't think that thing would surge up that high, but it did. And so anyways, we're going to go ahead and plug it back in, and let me change the function on this watt meter here back to watts. And then I'm going to switch it on, and we're going to watch the watt meter and see how this inverter acts once it gets overloaded, and you'll probably hear it flashing that alarm and showing that red light. It shut down within just a couple seconds. It's trying to run it though. It turned back on. Yeah, it turned back on for just like a split second and actually ran for just a second, and then it turned it back off, and then the alarm sounded. But let's go ahead and turn the inverter back on. I've got the heater turned off, but we'll go through here and look at the 736.9 watts was the highest. So it surged up pretty high, but again, it just didn't have enough power to run that heater there. So next, I'm going to go ahead and reset the watt meter, and I'm going to erase all the information that's stored in there. So that 736.9 is about to be erased, and you just take an ink pen and it resets it back to 0. And I'm going to retest it, but with a different device. So if you like the features of this watt meter, make sure you check down in the description. I'll put a link for an Amazon listing. I am an Amazon affiliate, and I do receive just a tiny little bit of commission. So if you buy one of these little watt meters, I might get 10 cents from it. But anyways, whatever. But these are pretty awesome watt meters. Are pretty accurate, and they're only like 12 bucks, 10, 12 bucks, somewhere in there. They're not much. But anyways, we're going to plug in this little hair dryer, and we're not going to be able to use it on a heat setting, most likely, because it's going to be too much wattage for it. But we can put it on the cool setting to where it just uses the fan. So that's what we're going to do now, and we're going to go ahead and change this back over to watts, and now we're going to go ahead and set it to low. There's 100, and I seen 180 something watts, but now it's at 176.4. So we're just gonna let it run a minute and see if it can run it. So 176.9, and you can see right there on the oscilloscope that the sine wave is still nice and clean and distortion free, so that's good. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. You can see it's at 177 watts still. So that shouldn't be any match for this inverter because it's only 177 watts, but we'll check and see what this thing surged up to. It surged up to 181.5 watts. I don't know how well you guys can see that. So now I'm going to kick it up a notch. I didn't think that I'd be able to run it, and I got to thinking, well, this thing on low should be right around 500 watts. So I'm going to try it on low and see if this thing is able to run it. And we went ahead and got it set to 0 on the watts there. And I'm going to turn it on. There's 181 where we were before. Now it's at 177. Now I'm going to kick it up one more notch on low, not high. 336. Now we're at 502, 501, 502.1. And I've got it pointed the opposite way so all the noise is not getting picked up so bad on the camera. But it's putting out 502.3 watts. So that's what it's rated at. And you can see that it's putting out heat. It's warm. So yeah. Let's run it just a minute and see if it has any problems. I'm going to set this thing in the floor. But you can still see that the oscilloscope right there, it's got a nice clean sine wave. It's at 503.2 watts. Let's see what it surged up to. It surged up to 503.9. It didn't get any higher than 503.9. So right now it's at 504.2. And the inverter is starting to get just a little bit warm. It's not hot yet, just like I said, just a little bit warm. This thing's been running at its max for maybe a minute or so. Alright, so I'm going to let this run and I'm going to test it and see if with a thermal camera and see if it's what kind of temperatures we're getting at.
All right, guys, so I just wanted to show you, we're looking right here at the terminal. Even though the image is a little bit off, we're focused right here on these terminals, and it's showing about 124.1 degrees, and that's with these larger cables on there. And you know, I can feel the inverter starting to heat up pretty good bit now. And let's see, we're going to put it up here on the case, and right there on the case it's about 105 degrees right there at the W where it says watts. So you know, it is getting them pretty warm. Now the fan is turned on now because it's running at max capacity, and the fan's not very noisy at all. And you know, it is putting out a little bit of air, and you know, it seems to be doing its job. But you know, the case is starting to actually heat up a little bit. Like I said, you know, just testing it right here at the W towards the back of the case, it's at 105.6 degrees. And then right here you can see these terminals are right at about 127 degrees. Now keep in mind that this heat gun does cast like a reflection sometimes, but it shows the hottest right here at the very top, 121.4, and that should be right in there at those terminals. So anyways, make sure you definitely don't use the cables that come with this inverter. I would definitely upgrade to some larger ones. And like I said, this thing it's getting on up there in temperature. Now it's up to about 100 and so right now it's about 105, about middle ways of the inverter. And then towards the end there, let's see, it's about 96. So you can tell it's a little warmer back towards the terminals, and it gets cooler towards the other end. And it's still putting out 500, look at that, 504.5 watts. So this thing's running above the capacity. You know, it's able to pull that 505 watts. No problem. It's only rated for 500 watts, so it's actually doing a good job. But you know, the case is getting pretty dang hot. Let's see right here. It shows about 107 degrees. I mean, I don't guess that's too terribly bad for a 500 watt inverter. But like I said, this thing's being able to run it no problem whatsoever. So about 108 there in the middle, and then we're going to come back over to the end one more time, and it's showing about 124 degrees right there at them terminals and at the end right there. And you can feel that fan blowing out. So yeah, we've let this thing sit here and run for several minutes now, and again, over 500 watts. So gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the inverter. You know, just watch it, make sure that it don't get too hot, but seems to be running fine. It's not cutting out or anything. So I just wanted to show you that we're not joking. This hair dryer is actually putting out heat. It's showing about 162 degrees, 161, 164, 200. It hit 200 there for a minute, and that's just on low. So you can actually hear the fans right now. Yeah, that's pretty quiet actually. And you know, these fans don't put like a high-pitched sound like some of these little small fans. Some of them are so high-pitched they're annoying because they're running so fast. This one doesn't seem to have that as loud of a high pitch as some of them do. So if you're looking for something that you want it to be quiet, this will be a good one. Now it seems like it did slow down. The fan seems like it is variable. I'm not sure if it is or isn't, but it did sound like it's slowing down to me. So when it had more of a load on it a while ago, it was running faster, and then I heard it just kind of slow down a little bit. So we'll see.
So I just wanted to measure your standby power for this inverter, and it comes up 0.7 amps. And so I did a conversion table here online, and 0.7 amps at 12 volts calculates out to 8.4 watts of power. So with nothing plugged into this, it's going to be using 8.4 watts of just standby power, so keep that in mind. And anyways, I'm going to wrap this test up. I gotta say the inverter, was able to run that 500 watts. Now the case did get a little bit warm, but not crazy. And I was pretty impressed with it. I mean, literally it just ran to its maximum power, and even over the maximum. It was let's see right here, it went up to 505.5 watts. So you can see right there it says 505 on high. So it did over the amount that it was supposed to. So gotta say, pretty impressed with the inverter. I like it, and like the case. I think that white looks good, and if you're using it outside, it's not gonna radiate that heat like a black inverter would. So I do like that. Now I wish that they would definitely upgrade their cables and actually put the proper size terminals on it so that you can use it with an M8 post on the battery. And if they was to do that, I believe that it's a good inverter. So for $40-something, I don't think that you can beat it. So anyways, make sure you guys check it out. It is a company I've never reviewed their products from before. It's called OUBOTEK, whatever it is, but it's OUBOTEK, and this is their 500 watt pure sine wave power inverter. And as you can see, I tested it with an oscilloscope, and it is pure sine wave. So anyways, it done everything that it said it could do, so pretty happy with it. So for 40 bucks, I don't think you can beat it. So I'll put a link in the description for this particular inverter, and make sure you stay tuned, because here in a few weeks we'll be testing out that 3,000 watt inverter, maybe in the next week or two. So make sure you like and subscribe for that. And if you're interested in this watt meter here, check in the description down below. If you're interested in those USB light bulbs that I showed you in the beginning of the video, make sure you check out down below for those. And then if you're interested in the thermal camera, check it out. These things are around 300 bucks, but this thing works amazing. Very, very impressive unit. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. See ya.